Hello, my name is Mike Barkyoumb, and welcome to an introduction to watercolors. We'll take a look at some basic needs you need to start a painting. I'll give you a few helpful tips, and we'll do a couple of quick demonstrations after. I've been painting for about 25 years. I've dabbled with acrylics, but my preferred medium is watercolors. Why watercolors? Because watercolors is fluid, and you can get some exciting and unexpected effects from it. I also love the way the white paper shines through the paint at times. Some say watercolors can be a little challenging because it is fluid and it can be hard to correct mistakes. However, don't let this deter you. All it takes is a little learning about watercolors through online videos, books, or you can even take a course. With a little patience, practice, and determining what your style is or subject matter that you want to paint, it will go a long way to helping you improve your style and ability. Remember, paintings should make you happy, and that's all that really matters. My motto is, it's only paper, so just paint. Here I've laid out a few materials that'll get you started on your painting project. The board, which is any hard material that it could be plywood or it could be what they call MDF, which is medium density fiber board. The board simply provides a surface for you to attach your watercolor paper to. When it comes to watercolor paper, there are numerous brands and qualities out there. If you're just starting out, don't get fussy with paper because they all are acid-free, which is critical to preserving your paintings. As you improve, you can experiment with different types of paper and you can pick out which one you like best. Paper comes in 3 different weights. 90-pound is thin, it's a little thicker than regular paper, and I like using it to mail out greeting cards. I use 140-pound almost exclusively because it's readily available. 300-pound paper is thick, stiff, and it won't warp when you wet it. Paper also comes in 3 different textures: hot press, cold press, and rough. Hot pressed is very smooth like plain paper, and the paint flows very easily. This paper takes a little practice to use effectively. Cold press is the most common paper, and it has a slight roughness to catch the paint. Rough has a lot of tooth to it, so the paint can skip over the peaks and settle into the valleys. When buying paper, it also comes in 3 different forms, and it also comes in many different sizes. Full sheets are 22 inches by 30 inches, and it is the most economical way to buy paper. The only problem with full sheets is you have to cut it to the size that you want to paint on. There are also tablets with tear-out sheets that either are spiral or glued-bound edges. Lastly, there are blocks. Blocks are glued on all 4 edges, and you have to cut it after you've cut it away from the block after you finish painting. These are handy as you don't need a board to attach your paper to it, and you can also use them outside while painting. I use 1-inch masking tape. You don't need to use the fancy blue stuff as it's far more expensive, and the regular masking tape works just fine. Some artists like to use artist pencils, but I like using a 5mm mechanical pencil, and the advantage is the lines are thinner and it also has a built-in eraser. Talking about erasers, use the white type if you can, as the white type tends to erase much cleaner. So next we'll talk about rulers. You say you can't draw a straight line? Don't worry, I use a ruler all the time. And this one's kind of handy because it has a little roller on the bottom, so when you're putting it on your paper, you can move it around. Next, we're going to talk about some paper towels and some Kleenex. Basically, the paper towels are used to dry your brushes either before or after using it. And the Kleenex is also handy for using to create effects in your paintings, such as putting clouds into skies. I also use a piece of scrap paper, watercolor paper, and I use this to test the intensity of my colors before I actually put it on the painting. If you're impatient like me, I often use a hairdryer. A hairdryer comes in really handy because it can dry your paints really quickly. All right, let's talk about paint. Paint comes in two different grades. It's a student grade and there's an artist grade. With the student grades, the grounds aren't as strong as artist grades. However, you should not think about not using student grades paint because they are far less expensive, especially when you're first starting out. Paint comes in different size tubes and pans. This is a tube. This is a 15 millimeter tube. They also come in 7 millimeter tube and I believe about a 30 millimeter tube. It almost comes in a countless selection of colors. What you decide to paint will dictate what colors you choose. However, a basic selection could include cadmium red, which is over here. I don't know if you can see this, but cadmium red is a good basic color. Lemon yellow is a nice bright yellow. Yellow ochre is a medium yellow. Burnt sienna is a medium brown. And raw umber is a darker brown. Cobalt or ultramarine blue is a nice blue as it can be used in many areas, anywhere from skies to shadows. Earthen or olive green also makes a nice foliage. Lastly, I use titanium white or Payne's gray to either tone up or tone down my paints. Let's talk about the palette next. Your palette could be based upon the above colors, but trust me, bigger is better because you tend to collect paints as time goes on. Also, if you can afford it, use a porcelain palette like this one, as they clean up much easier and they don't move around because of their weight. All right, we're going to talk about brushes. There are countless brushes out there, and there are many styles, many qualities, but for beginners, I recommend that you use the pure synthetic types, as they are far less expensive and they take abuse much better. The key to using a brush is use the biggest brush that you can for a particular area of your painting. As far as styles of brush, I use mostly rounds. But I can also use a few flats, like this one, a fan, a wash brush, and a scrubber brush. When buying rounds, make sure they have a good point on the end. If you're buying from a local dealer, don't hesitate to ask them if you can dip it in water to test how much of a point that it has. Flats are good for covering larger areas on your painting. Fans, like this one here, are great for putting texture into your paintings, such as brass. A wash brush, like this big one here, is good for painting very large areas, such as skies on your painting. And then lastly, the scrub brush. You can use this one to remove paint so you can see the white of the paper. Sometimes you can use this to correct mistakes too. It all depends on the intensity of the color. Well, that pretty much covers what you need to start a painting. So now we're going to take a look at, we're going to do a couple of quick demonstrations to show you how easy it can be to create art. Before we start doing some demonstrations, I just wanted to give you some helpful hints. I can't recommend enough that if you have the room, try to dedicate a space to create and store your art. It's so much easier to simply sit down and start a painting without having to have the fuss of dragging out all your art materials. You'll find you'll paint much more. After all, painting should be fun, and this will help eliminate the stress in getting prepared to paint. Also, support your local art dealer when you can. They can provide an instant answer to any questions that you have. And obviously, you can also shop online. When buying art materials, try to buy the best that you can, or you can afford, because they'll pay for themselves in the end. I have to say that not all of your paintings will make you happy. If they don't come out, don't get discouraged. Simply store them away for a while, and then after a while, just pull them out and take another look at them to see where you created your mistakes and possibly fix them. I take a second look at my paintings all the time. Also, getting a second opinion from other people also really helps. So when doing your sketches, don't worry about the pencil lines, as they can provide some nice details in your paintings. Make your paintings interesting by sketching your center of interest off to one side. So what do I mean by that? Let's take a look at this little example right here. I don't know if we can see this, but basically what you should do is divide your paper into thirds. And your center interest, or the point of, or the object that you want to identify and make clear in your paintings, should be in one of these 4 spots right here. You see that? Okay. This was an example of a rough draft of a Christmas card that I did way back when. And like you can see, my center of interest is this red door, so it's down here in the corner. For me, freehand sketching is the least favorite part of doing a painting. I usually use photographs as a basis for my paintings. So what do? I cheat. I use a projector to draw my outlines on the paper, and then I go back to my art desk and fill in the details from there. Projectors are like wine. You can pay a lot, or you can pay a little. The cheaper ones have less clarity in the image, but basically they all get the job done. So this is the way I like to paint, but you'll find, as in many things, there are many ways to do the same thing differently. Experiment and you'll find your own way. Okay, enough talk. Let's go on to painting and demonstration for you. When you're doing your paintings, depending on the type of painting and the style of painting that you're going to do, you might want to consider elevating your board or paper. In this case, we're only going to elevate it just a touch. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to do an example of this painting right here. Basically, it's a fall scene with some nice colors in the trees, nice water down here. And this is basically a copy of a demonstration that I picked out from a book. And talking about your center of interest, I was really surprised when I saw this demonstration and I looked at it again, that the center of interest is obviously this little cabin right here, and it's in the wrong spot. Remember I told you to put your center of interest off to the side, so this cabin should have been over here or over here. But anyway, this is what we're going to do today. So we're going to start by getting some water available, and we're going to start, I like to start at the top and work my way down through the painting. So we're going to start with the sky, and I'm going to show you how to put some clouds in that sky. Real easy. It's really simple. We need to get some paint on the tray here. And I'm going to use my big brush. And I'm going to test the intensity of the paint. And it's not dark enough yet. So we're going to put some more paint in there. All right, let's try that. Yeah, that's good. So as you can see, I've put an outline of the mountains here. I'm not going to get really fussy. So I'm just going to put some paint on here. And with skies, one of the things you want to consider is skies usually get lighter down towards the horizon. So I'm just going to roughly follow these mountains and put some paint in there. All right, so while this is still wet, I'm going to show you how simple it is to put clouds in your skies. Just take some Kleenex and bunch it up, and then try to, well, actually this paper doesn't want to work that great. Well, unfortunately I'm not going to be able to show you how to do that. But basically, which surprised me, this paper doesn't want to work that way, but usually you just take a paper towel or Kleenex and just kind of dab it on here, and it'll make the paper white again, and it'll show you how to make clouds. All right, so let's move on. This paper was some paper that was given to me, and apparently it's not that great a paper. So now we're going to put some mountains in there. And like the song, Purple Mountain Majesties, we're going to put some purple mountains in here. We're going to live dangerously for a little bit. So we're going to put some paint on the tray. We're going to test the intensity, which looks pretty good. And again, I'm not going to get fussy because these are quick demonstrations. I'm just going to dabble this in here just to give you an idea. This is actually kind of strong. Let's put some more water in here. Let's put some more water in here. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I guess I should have used this paper before I started doing the demonstration because it's not very good paper. But we'll make it work. So like I said, we're just going to dabble this in here. Like I said, I'm not getting too fancy with it. Obviously, if you're sitting at home and you're sitting at your desk, you might want to pay a little more attention to what you're doing. But this works just fine. Again, you can see I'm using the biggest brush that I can for a particular area in this painting. Which is important because you don't want to be dabbing into your paint constantly, going back and forth all the time. The bigger the brush, the more paint it holds, and the less work that you're going to be doing as a result. So let's put some more paint here. Sometimes it pays you to work quickly, and sometimes it pays you to work slowly. Painting quickly usually results in a more artistic painting. All right, now we're going to work on these trees. So we're going to put some paint here. What color do we want to use? Let's use this green. So we're going to want to put a nice minty green in the background so that we can get some color. Some fall foliage colors in here. It's still too dark. There we go. That's better. So I'm just going to quickly dab this stuff in here. Make sure it's nice and wet, so that when we get ready to put some of the fall colors in here, they'll blend. And this is called wet on wet. Wet on wet allows the colors to blend so there's no hard edges. Whoops. Let's go over here. Red is a very strong pigment or color, and you want to be careful with red because it can overpower your painting real easy. I don't know if you can see how this is blending, and there's nice soft edges here. which makes things nice. That's a little strong. So we're just going to put some nice colors in here, just kind of dabbling it in there. What's nice about wet on wet, you don't want to fuss with it too much. Put it on and leave it alone. Let the paint do the work. So put some nice yellow in here. Let's get it a little bit stronger. And we'll put another red one over here. And we'll put another orange one. And we'll put some more yellow over here. All right, so that section is done. So now we're going to put some more green on this side. And the reason I'm separating these trees from these trees is because I want to make sure that this paint is wet so that that paint blends. So now we're going to put some green over here. Like I said, you want to have this a nice minty green so that it allows the other fall foliage colors to shine through. Because if it's too dark, it won't, you won't be able to see these oranges and reds and yellows. Okay, let's make sure it's wet. So these colors blend. All right, so let's start with, you also want to check your paper and make sure that it's not too wet, because if it's too wet, these papers, these paint will go all over the place. It'll really spread, which obviously you don't want to have happen in this case. So we're just going to dab in some reds in here. All right, that's enough red. Let's do some orange. The thing to keep in mind when you're working with wet on wet is because the paper is wet, you might want to consider using a little stronger paint, because the paper is wet. It dilutes the paint as you're putting it on the paper. All right, let's put some yellows in here. Yellow is another strong pigment or color. You need to be careful with yellows because it can really overpower your paintings. Sometimes that's a good thing, but just be aware that yellow can really be a strong color. All right, we're done with the trees. Now we're going to put some little details down here at the bottom. So we're going to mix up some darker green. This one here is earthen green. Like I said, earthen green makes a nice foliage color. And we're going to darken that up a little bit. All right. And all we're going to do here is we're just going to dip some of this down here to indicate some shrubbery at the bottom. And then we're going to put some down here in the shoreline. Like I said, just kind of dip it in there. Don't get too fancy with it. Just kind of dip it in there. Okay? All right, I'm going to take a quick break just to dry this paint for a minute, and we'll be right back. When you want to test to see if your paper is dry, take the back of your finger and just kind of tap it on the paper like that and you can feel whether the paint is dry or not. If it's not, take the hairdryer to it again. All right, so now we're going to put some color in here. And we're just going to dab this in here a little bit. Just to indicate the shoreline. All right. Now we're going to put some texture on this shoreline. We'll use this same green, but we'll lighten it up a little bit. And let's take a look here. What have we got? Yeah, that'll work. And we're just going to, I guess, what we need to do, like I said, don't get fancy with it. Sometimes it's really nice to work really fast because it creates some nice unexpected events. All right, what are we going to do next? All right, we're going to do the roof. And we're going to mix up some blue and some Payne's gray just to darken it up a little bit. And we'll test it. Yep, that works. All right. So we're just going to dab that in there. The thing to remember when you're painting is you always try to put dark against light or light against dark colors, so they makes them stand out. So we put the roof on there. Now we're going to, I guess I gotta clean this up a little bit so I can make room for some other paint colors. So we're just gonna clean that up. See how nice this palette cleans up? It really quick and really clean. Some of the plastic type palettes, they take a little longer and they tend to stain sometimes too. Not that that makes a difference, but porcelain is really nice because the palettes don't move and they stay where they're put and they clean up really nice. All right, let's test this. This is a little bit damp, but I think we can probably live with it. So we're going to put some color on the cabin now. And we're just going to put some paint on the palette here. Let me see what have I got. Yeah, actually, that's the wrong color. We want this color. What have we got here? Yeah, let's put a little bit more paint in there. All right, so basically I'm just going to put some of this yellow on here. It's a little dark, but we'll live with it. Maybe we can take some of that out by just dabbing the paint. Alrighty. Again, we're going to take just a short break to dry this paint. All right, that yellow paint is dry. Now let's put some highlights in there. Talking about highlights, let's take just a minute to talk about highlights. Highlights are very important in painting, but the thing to keep in mind is you need to step back from your painting once in a while to take a look and see what you've done. If you can't see a highlight or a specific detail in your painting from 4 feet away, you need to either consider A, you don't need it, or B, you need to make it stronger so that you can see it. All right, so let's put some highlights in here. Again, we're not going to get too fancy. We're just going to put some color in here just to show where the light is coming from. I haven't talked about light, but basically every painting should have some sort of direction where the light is coming from. In this case, the light is coming from this direction, so this side of the cabin is going to be darker than that side. So we put that on. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the water on the lake here. Well, this is drying, so we don't have to take another break. When you're doing water, usually the water, well, actually almost always, the water is always darker than the sky color. So we're going to pick up some paint, test that. We need to make it a little bit darker. So we're just going to, whoa, that's pretty strong. So let's pick that up a little bit. I have to apologize for this paper. I should have tested it before I started out today, but I didn't. But we're going to make do. See these strokes here? This is called dry brush. When painting water, it comes in pretty handy because what it does is the paint skips over the ridges in the painting and it doesn't settle into the valleys, which makes the water either shimmer or you can make it look like waves. But in this case, we're just going to put it on here. Again, we're not getting fancy with it. We're just kind of putting it on. All right, so what are we going to do now? All right, that's still a little bit damp, so let's work on this water again. So now we're going to put what I like to call friction on water. We're not going to actually put waves in there, but we're going to put some friction on the water to make it look like there's ripples or something along that line. So we're going to mix up some Payne's Gray here. Test the intensity. Yeah, that works. So when you're doing slight waves like this on paper, you want to make sure that your lines are perfectly straight across. They don't want to be at an angle. So we're just going to put some Z's in here. Let's make these a little bit darker. This brush is called a rigger. It, as you can see, it's very long in the brush. It's very thin, so you can paint some really nice thin lines. So let's put that like that. I'll put more little paint in here. That puts some friction on the water. All right. So let's finish up this cabin. Again, we're going to put some highlights with some darker brown. Test the intensity. Still not dark enough. There we go. So we're going to put some shadows under the eaves of this cabin, like this, and like this. And then we're going to paint in the doors and the windows. Doors and windows are a lot of fun to paint. You can create some, and bigger paintings, you can really create some nice effects on doors and windows. I usually paint them with Payne's Gray, but this demonstration called for brown, so that's what we'll do. All right, we're almost done with this cabin. Now we're going to put a little chimney in there. See how, I don't know if you can see that or not, but see how strong this red is? You need to be careful with red because it really can be quite powerful. So we're going to put some paint here. All I did here was I just dipped the excess paint off in my brush, but I had way too much paint. There's the chimney. And we're almost done with this one. Let me take a quick break. I just want to dry this because it's still wet up here. All right, we're back. Here's my brush. So the only thing that we need to do now is take some of this Payne's Gray again. I like to put activity in a lot of my paintings, and a simple way of doing that is simply putting birds in the sky or a flag waving, some sort of activity other than static objects. So we're going to put a couple of seagulls in here, seeing how this is a water scene. And these are simply just V's. See how simple that was to make birds? All right, are we almost done with this? Oh, I gotta paint this boat. Take a little bit of this red. Too much paint. There. So that takes care of this one. Again, I had to apologize for this paper. This paper is really bad. And I couldn't do everything on this painting that I wanted to. Like I said, one of the things I wanted to put some clouds up here. And the way we did that, or would have done it, was to make sure that this blue paint is still wet. And take a Kleenex and just kind of dab it through there. And presto bango, you've got clouds. All right, so let's take a look at this other painting that we're going to do today. We're going to paint this one. And basically this is an example of greeting cards that I send out. The wife sends out a lot of greeting cards, so I make some for her from time to time. And they're usually flowers, but I also do different subject matters. But she likes flowers, so I paint a lot of those. So we're going to use that as an example to paint flowers. All right, where do we want to start? Let's use this brush. So we're going to start with the yellows. And we're going to put some yellow paint in here. Mix it up. As you can see, I like to paint with paints that are really juicy so that the paint flows really easy. And again, we're not going to get too fancy with this. We're just going to dab it on there, seeing how these are demonstrations. And the whole purpose of these demonstrations are to show how easy it can be to make art. These flowers are daffodils, my wife's favorite flower. Although I don't have a very green thumb and I could never plant these and have them grow to my satisfaction. All right, I'll put some yellow paint in here. The reason this paper is so bad is because it just absorbs into the paint, absorbs into the paper like a Kleenex. And once it's in there, you can't do anything with it. Again, I apologize. All right. So there is the yellow. I have to refresh my memory. Now, so let me take a quick break and dry this. Now we're going to take some orange and we're going to do the, what, that's a little too dark. We'll put some more orange on this one. Like I said, I just kind of dabbing it in there. All right. Now we're going to take some more yellow. And if this was decent paper, this would all blend in together, but it's not going to today. Now we're going to take some of this darker brown. And we're going to fill in this area right here. Whoops. Fill in the centers of these flowers. Now we'll put some orange highlights. So, we're just going to put some stuff here. We're not going to get too fancy with this. No two paintings come out the same, and you could paint this card over and over again, and no two of them will come out the same, which makes it kind of interesting. All I'm doing is, with this Kleenex, is removing the excess paint, because this paint, as it stands on the brush, is much too dark, and I don't want it that dark. So I'm just dabbing it out to lighten it up. And I'll put some stuff in here. All right. Let's put some shadows in there. Yep. All we're going to do is we're going to put some shadows behind these center buds, I guess you'd call them. Because again, the light is coming from this direction, so the shadows fall on this side of these buds. Whoops. I guess I shouldn't have dabbed that one out. All right. Now we're going to, actually, give me a minute. I'm going to clean myself a space here. So what are we going to do now? All right, we're going to put the stems in. So let's get some green paint on the palette. Test the intensity. So stems tend to get thicker as you go to the bottom, so you just put more pressure on the brush and see how they get thicker. I like to paint with music. I have an iPod that I use to kind of drown everything out in the background that's going on in the house. I find it very relaxing to paint with music. Alright, so there's the stems. Now we're going to put some background color in there. And before I do, I'm going to take a quick break just to dry these paints here on the stems. Alright, now we're just going to dabble in some color here in the back just to kind of signify that there's grass back here. Again, we're just going to dabble that in here. Just to separate the yellows from the white of the back of the paper. There. And we'll put some other streaks in here. When you're doing these kind of streaks, you're just using the tip of the brush very lightly. Just kind of scratch along. All right, even though I put this on the wrong side of the paper, if you wanted to use it for a greeting card, you could use it for a left-handed person. So that pretty much covers what we've done today as far as demonstrations. Just some closing notes. When you're done with your paintings, if you're satisfied with it, whether you're satisfied or not, you should always sign your paintings. And I always sign my paintings with my name and a date, actually the year. And you should also put a name to it or identify its location on the painting. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to watercolor painting today. Remember, it's only paper, so just paint. If you have any questions, you can contact me by email. My email is m_Barkyoumb, which is spelled BARKYOUMB @yahoo.com. Or you can give me a call on my phone, which is 868-2492. And I'd be more than glad to help you out with any questions that you may have. Thank you very much. Have a good day.